So as we wrapped up the last video, I talked about that it's still possible to simplify imaginary numbers without using the calculator. Okay. The way you can do that is remember these couple of rules. I to the 0 is 1, just because anything raised to the 0 power that's not 0 is 1. I to the first power is itself, which is just I. I squared is equal to -1. The reason this is because square root of -1 times square root -1 is just equal to -1. Remember, when you multiply like radicals, that the radical sign just goes away. Whatever is underneath it stays. Then I cubed is -I, right? Because it's square root -1, square root -1 times square root -1, where square root -1 times square root -1 is -1 times square root -1. We can't simplify or combine any more radicals, so we just go back and replace the square root of -1 with I. And just like with anything else, if your coefficient is a 1, you can get rid of it and just write it as I. And then I to the 4th is equal to just I, because of the following. Square root -1, square root -1 is equal to -1 times square root -1 times square root -1 is equal to -1. -1 times -1 is equal to 1. Now, with all of these, you have different options or different ways that you can go for, and do them. What I like to do is just write them out, expand them. I to the 5th is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can do any problem as long as you remember that I to the 1st is just I, and I squared is -1. Right? Because any multiple can be made up of 1s and 2s. Okay? So I squared means I need 2 i's. So one group of i's, 2 groups of i's. And then I to the 1st is just, well, I by itself. Well, I squared is -1. I squared, -1. I is just I. Right? All of this is multiplication. -1 times -1 is 1. Times I is I. 1I is just I. Again, I'm going to do the same process for number 2. Again, taking care of my i's first. I. This one over here is just I. I have 2 i's. I know that this is really -1. So 2 times -1 is -2. I is just I. So I'll replace 2i squared with just -2 plus 5i. And that's my answer, because I can't combine the -2 and the 5, because the 5 goes with the I. Number 3, I cubed is 3 i's. I to the 1st power is just I. And I have a group of 2's. I squared is -1 times I. This is just I. So -I minus I minus 6i is negative 7i. Number 4 will be the last one I do. So again, you can go about these a ton of different ways, as long as what you do is kind of consistent. What I'm going to do personally is distribute first, just because that's what I'm used to doing. I've done way more distributing than I have done with i's. So 7 times 8 is 56. I to the 6 times I squared. I have to remember properties of exponents. I to the 8th. 7 times 3 is 21. I to the 6th. I to the 1st. Multiplying properties of exponents tells me to add them. Minus 5 times 7 is 35. And then just I to the 6th. And then after I do that, take care of my i's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I have 7 of them over here. Over here I have 6 of them. Again, it's kind of bad. Because I have so many, I'm just going to circle them. 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. And then again, I squared is negative 1. So I have 56 times negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. So this just becomes 56. I to the 7th. 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. This will be 21 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times I. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Times 21 is 21. That's minus 21. And then I. And I to the 6th. It's 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. So 35, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. So just minus 35. From here, I have 56 minus 21i minus 35. Still combine like terms, which my like terms for this is going to be the 56 minus 35. So 21 minus 21i. And that is my answer. So a little bit more tedious, a little bit more time consuming doing them this way. But again, focus on your i's after you're comfortable doing math that we've already done. So again, I'm going to rewrite this to make it look like something I'm used to. I know I divide my numbers, subtract my exponents, come back up here to my properties. I know I to the 4th is 1. So 5 minus 4 is 1 left over. So it's just going to be 3i. Again, the more you do these, the quicker you can go at them. Again, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be trying to remember all of these. The only ones I would be trying to really remember is I raised to the 0 power is 1. And honestly, not even that, because you already know what that is. but just I to the first power is I, and I squared is -1. All right, I was able to do all 4 of the first problems just by knowing that.